What if I told you there was a humble Swedish car from 1956 that routinely hit 400,000 miles with just 60 horsepower and suspension technology from the 1930s? Not a supercar, not a luxury icon. Just a boxy Volvo taxi built for ordinary people that ended up proving something extraordinary to the entire automotive world. A car that refused to die. A machine that outlived the roads it drove on and sometimes even outlived the people who owned it. This is the story of the Volvo PV444, the unbreakable box that changed everything we thought we knew about durability. Picture this moment like a frozen movie scene. Stockholm, winter of 1956. The streets are covered in a thick blanket of snow and ice. The wind slices through the air like blades. The temperature has crashed to -20 degrees Celsius, the kind of cold that hurts your bones. Roads? More pothole than pavement. Piles of salt chewing through metal so aggressively that cars rusted to pieces within years. In places like this, 50,000 miles was basically the end of the road for most cars. Engines seized, suspension snapped, frames dissolved, winter always won. But then something unusual began happening. Taxi drivers, the people who beat cars harder than anyone, were watching their PV444 odometers roll past 100,000 miles, 200,000, 300,000. These were numbers nobody expected from a tiny 1.4-liter Swedish sedan. Drivers were so stunned that they started placing bets on which PV444 would die first. Some of those bets are still unresolved because the cars simply kept going. People began saying, "The PV444 will retire you before you retire it." To understand why this slow, underpowered little car became an industrial legend, we have to travel back to 1944 in the final year of World War II. Sweden was neutral, but isolation hit hard. Steel was rationed, rubber was scarce, gasoline was precious. The country needed transportation desperately, but nearly every resource was restricted. Volvo had not built a passenger car in years. Their previous attempt, the PV36 Carioca, was a financial disaster so bad that many believed it would destroy the company. Inside Volvo headquarters in Gothenburg, a small engineering team huddled in cold underground offices. They were led by a stubborn visionary named Helmer Pettersson, a man obsessed with making things that lasted. He was given one mission: build a car that could survive Sweden. Not the fastest, not the most stylish, not even the cheapest, just the toughest. Because Sweden demanded it. Fuel cost 3 times more than in America. Winter temperatures plunged to -30 degrees Celsius. Roads cracked open every spring from frost, turning smooth highways into war-zone terrain. Cars were so expensive that families kept them 15 to 20 years. This wasn't a market for shiny chrome and annual redesigns. This wasn't a playground for marketing tricks or planned obsolescence. This was a place where machines needed to fight the environment to stay alive. A place where reliability wasn't a feature, it was survival. Helmer understood this better than anyone. And his dream was simple: build a car so strong that it becomes part of the family. The first PV444 prototype was revealed in 1944, at a time when people were desperate for hope, for something to look forward to after years of war. Volvo expected a quiet response, maybe a few hundred buyers. Instead, they took 2,300 orders in just 10 days. Production wouldn't even begin for another 3 years. Yet people lined up and paid deposits simply because they believed in Volvo's promise. And when the first production models finally rolled out in 1947, buyers found something far more impressive than they ever imagined. Under the hood sat the legendary B4B engine, a 1.4-liter inline-4 producing just 60 horsepower. In America, those numbers were laughable. Cars with 60 horsepower were toys, not transportation. But Volvo wasn't chasing power. They were chasing immortality, so they overbuilt everything. A massive cast-iron engine block thick enough to stop bullets. A forged steel crankshaft that could handle 3x the power it actually produced. Oversized bearings designed to last decades. A low compression ratio that allowed low-quality wartime fuel to burn cleanly. A pushrod valve system closer to farm machinery than automotive design. This wasn't an engine. This was industrial equipment disguised as a car part. Taxi drivers routinely hit 250,000 to 300,000 miles with nothing more than oil changes. One documented PV444 in Gothenburg stayed in service until 487,000 miles, still running on its original engine. Now, let's talk about suspension, the part that suffers the most in harsh road conditions. While Mercedes, Jaguar, and Citroën were developing advanced independent suspension systems, Volvo made a shocking decision. They used 1930s-style beam axles and leaf springs, front and rear. To sports car engineers, this was prehistoric technology. But Volvo knew something critical. Simple doesn't break. A rural Swedish mechanic could rebuild a PV444 suspension with a hammer, a wrench, and parts from a tractor. No fragile ball joints. No delicate rubber bushings. Just thick Swedish steel. Drivers joked, if you break a PV444 suspension, check the road. It might be the road that broke. The PV444 wasn't just mechanically durable. Its structure was revolutionary. Unibody construction. Body panels up to 1.5 millimeters thick. Reinforced floor and roof pillars strong enough to survive rollovers. One of the earliest forms of crumple zone engineering. Rust protection everywhere. Taxi companies reported 15 years of service where other brands lasted 3 to 5. Owners said it felt like a tank wearing a tuxedo. Real-world proof followed fast. Engines, 250,000 to 300,000 miles. Transmissions, 300,000 plus miles. Whole cars, 400,000 to 500,000 miles. Compared to American cars dying at 50,000 miles and European sports cars rebuilding every 30,000. In motorsport, the PV444 shocked everyone. Tom Trana won championships because the Volvo never broke. Rally legend Gunnar Andersson finished ahead of Porsche and Mercedes by simply being the last car still running. When the PV444 arrived in America, engineers, professors, doctors, and pilots started buying them, people who calculated cost per mile. The PV444 became a cult object, the thinking person's car. It changed banking, insurance, regulation, and consumer trust. Proved durability builds loyalty. Today, surviving PV444s still run, still start, still drive, still refuse to die. Their DNA lives on in the Amazon, the 140 series, the 240, and modern Volvos. Durability isn't magic. Durability is courage, the courage to build honestly. So the next time someone says, they don't build cars like they used to, tell them about the Volvo PV444, the car that refused to die. If stories like this inspire you, hit like, comment, and subscribe, because the next story will blow your mind.